our beloved Anne. I have her sassy picture up here with me to keep it close to my heart. We were so blessed to have her to be her final spiritual family, even though that our spiritual life is eternal. We were so blessed to have her with us. I want to welcome each of you here to honor and remember a very precious one whom we have loved as Anne Roberts, and I welcome each of you, to this celebration of her life. A couple of things before we begin. There'll be a slideshow that will roll. We're going to do Anne's life in 3 acts. Of course we are, right? Because that's how she lived, and Denise got it together so beautifully. But as the PowerPoint scrolls, you're going to see pictures of Anne through the years with friends, but also she was a professional photographer. So when you see a picture of the Golden Gate Bridge, that's a picture that Anne took. When you see the flowers, those are pictures of Anne's work. So watch for that. And in our celebration remembrance altar up here, you can take a walk by later if you like, but there are several pictures, but there's some mementos of her life. The green and white crocheted cloth was her favorite thing that her mother made, that she would wrap her cameras up in to keep them safe whenever she traveled. And there's a CD down there, and it's the first CD she ever recorded, and it has a paper label because Secretary Denise had to, handwrite the names of all the tracks. And there's a CD player with headphones because when she was a DJ, she had to be able to hear the next song coming up, and so that's there. She was always growing and learning, so she was learning to play the acoustic guitar, so her guitar lesson book is up here. And of course, pictures of her. Let me see. Did I miss anything? Oh, her book. Right, her book is up here also. So we give thanks for the expression of this life that was so beautiful here on earth and continues to be so beautiful in life. We're going to begin our service hearing directly from Anne in one of her poems set to music called How to Meet Your Higher Self. So let's have a listen.
Did not want to give up a thing, let alone learn how to forgive. You see, there are many folks I know I'll never speak to again as long as I or they live. Oh, we all know who they is. They are responsible for my grief. I wouldn't even be making a forgiveness list, except I heard doing it gives mental relief. Reluctantly, I wrote forgiveness list and put my name on the page at the top. I started writing and writing, writing and writing. Didn't think I would ever stop. I wrote about my whole life. Had I really been angry that long? I was angry with myself, my friends, family, and lovers. It shocked me that those memories were still so strong. People showed up in my dreams I hadn't thought about in years. I'd wake up and write their names on the list. Then other names and faces would appear. Oh, I'm still pissed off with many of them, just as if it happened yesterday. But this list made anger easier to give up and kept me from giving more of my power away. Forgiving like this has really changed my life. I encourage you all to make a forgiveness list. It's opened my heart and made more space for peace and love to exist. And it will open your heart and create more space for peace and love to exist.
Okay. So that was her forgiveness list, not how to, but that is a good way to meet your higher self. All right, so let's take a moment and start our service with some prayer. Take a deep breath in and let your thoughts drop into that heart space that's so tender and loving. Father, you said that where two or more were gathered in your name, that you would be among us. And in our oneness with you, we feel a sense of closeness with all those whom we love, and especially now with Anne. And even though she's passed beyond our sight, we see her enfolded in love and know that your light illumines her path as it always has. We affirm for Anne the truth taught by Jesus Christ. I am the resurrection and the life. And we know she remains her same imperishable self in the eternal Spirit of God. We ask comfort and peace be extended to each heart here, and especially to her family, to Vanessa, to Denise, and to Janelle, and all of those who will be watching the replay online. Anne's life made a difference in yours because she touched your heart in a way that only she could touch. And so, loving Spirit, be with us now as we gather to express our love and respect and say farewell to Anne. In the name of the living Christ, together we all say, Amen. And to Anne's family here, Denise, Janelle, and Vanessa, I want to say that our hearts are with you. We were so privileged to have her a part of our community in the last couple of years. And our prayer is that your grief might move through you gently, and that you take comfort in the truth, knowing that love that has been given can never be lost, and that love is eternal. And may the peace which passes all human understanding be with you as you move through the change of relationship with Anne. I have a few remarks this morning. In this gathering of friends and loved ones, we're particularly aware of the love and friendship for Anne, and we are saddened by the thought that someone so precious has gone out of our life. It's not her outer face and form that draws us here today, but rather it was the inner qualities of love and strength and joy that Anne lived so beautifully and so sassy-like. You'll see some of the slides have sassy on them because she had a wonderful spirit. She lived it beautifully, and it was a rich experience to share that with her, and it's that love and that experience that calls us all here today. I heard an assignment that a college professor gave to his students, and he asked them to describe themselves in just 6 words. And what I've come to know about Anne is that answer that could describe someone in 6 words fits Anne from the Gospel of Matthew, chapter 25, verse 21. This is your pop quiz, Bible quiz. It's well done, good and faithful servant. Anne was good, she was faithful, and she had a servant's heart. You only have to look on the back of the brochure to see all of her career endeavors and all of the things that she's been involved in, taking the lead, stepping out, using her talents and her gifts in service. She was a wonderful woman with many gifts and talents, and she used them well, as displayed up here with some of the mementos of her life. She loved many and was loved by many for many things, as you will hear and love for many things, as you'll hear in our sharing today of her life in 3 acts. Today, as we celebrate Anne, it's our intention to free our thought of her as one inhabiting a body. We lift our attention to the beauty of her spirit, and we support her in the new life that she has entered. It's our desire that from this moment on, we never think of her as confined or limited by time or place or form, but always remember her as a living soul, continuing on her pathway in eternal life and remaining always in God's wise and loving care. In unity, we believe that God is the living presence in every created person, and this presence is ageless, deathless, timeless spirit. In God, we live and move and have our being, and this life within us never ceases to exist. The spirit of this one we love, Anne, is no longer present in bodily form, but she is very much alive in the Spirit of God. For in truth, our true spiritual nature is too great to ever be confined, isn't it? My minister, Dorothy Pearson, gave a lesson one time, "Oh, Spirit unconfined." And you can see yourself like that, and we see Anne like that today. I like to think of life as a process of when we are born, it's as if God exhales us out, and when we die, we're inhaled back into that breath of spirit. There are many, many beautiful passages in Scripture that confirm our eternal oneness with God. I'll share a few of them with you. In the Gospel of John, chapter 14, verses 2 through 27, "Let not your heart be troubled. Believe in God. Believe also in me." Jesus is speaking. He says, "In my Father's house are many mansions. If it were not so, I would have told you. For I go to prepare a place for you. And if I go and prepare a place for you, I will come again and receive you unto myself, that where I am, there you may be also. Peace I leave with you. My peace I give unto you. Not as the world gives, give I unto you." And sometimes when we're understanding the sudden passing of someone, the unexpected passing of someone, our hearts need that peace that passes all human understanding. And I have my notes here. So I want to share with you now, Anne lived a very colorful and very interesting life. And so I want to share with you her life as we know it in 3 acts, which I said Denise has very beautifully written. And the slideshow will run as we're hearing about Anne, and you'll hear a few more of her poems set to music. But Act 1, most people only know Anne as Anne Roberts. But she was born on December 13th, 1949, Betty Ann Roberts, with no E after the A-N-N-E. We know A-N-N-E, Ann Roberts. My niece is the same. Are you Ann with an E or Ann without the E? Ann became Ann Roberts. She was raised in Wilmington, Delaware, and at the age of 12, she received her first camera for Christmas and knew then she would become a photographer. Every year, she received a newer model camera and had dreams of attending a school of photography. She graduated from high school, joined a community center, and learned to develop film there, and met real working photographers. You can imagine as a young girl what a thrill that would be. Anne dated a man from New York and visited him on weekends, and while in New York, she discovered the German School of Photography. When she visited one weekend, her boyfriend surprised her by taking her to the German school to visit, paid her tuition, and enrolled her for the coming fall. Her dream had come true, and she became a professional photographer with the exceptional talent of catching the essence of her subjects at the perfect moment, and she did this for more than 25 years. I don't think we in her spiritual community knew that part of Act 1, right? Anne moved to Detroit, Michigan in the 70s, and she was introduced to Lessons in Truth, Unity's basic textbook, by Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, founders of the Unity Church, and she said they had the same effect on her as A Course in Miracles had on many. She found the work enlightening, and her heart was in agreement with the information. Anne also read everything she could find on truth and law, spiritual law, and she began to consciously practice the words of Charles and Myrtle Fillmore, Catherine Ponder, Norman Vincent Peale, Og Mandino, Dale Carnegie. All of those New Thought, progressive, positive authors and ministers. And this was in the 70s, long before we had become acquainted with Anne. In the 80s, Anne moved to Florida and learned about religious science, the science of mind, and its founder, Ernest Holmes, from Reverend Alma Stevens. After 7 years of class study, she became a practitioner. A practitioner in science of mind, they have a way more rigorous course than a Unity minister does. Every time I run into a science of mind practitioner, I kind of bow in respect, because their course of curriculum was way more difficult than the Unity minister one. And she became a practitioner. She believed her job was to practice seeing the truth that everyone that's powerful because of the divine power within. And if you do that while in prayer and meditation for others, it's enormously powerful. She also received, 4 years training as a holistic healer at the Center for Psychical Research in Hollywood, Florida, under the direction of Dr. Lilia Laget, the French way, Laget. So she was in Hollywood, Florida. In one of her acts, she'll be in Hollywood, California. Seemed to be a little theme there for her. During the early 90s, Anne relocated to Austin, Texas, and continued practitioner duties while she enrolled in ministerial classes until the church administration changed and she no longer felt welcomed. And that's where we were supposed to play the forgiveness list CD, but she was totally forgiving. You'll forgive us, right? Well, I always say in Unity, we're in the forgiveness business. She did continue to practice and study through meditation, prayer, and positive thinking and living, and found herself drawn to study the art of massage for health and healing with herbs. And before getting her license, her massage practice was already in place for the next few years. She did the things she loved the most: photography, massage, herbal treatments, and everything that went with it. Dave, I don't know if you want to roll back to that first thing that we said. How to find your higher self. I think that's what this one
is. Make no excuse for anything. Listen to your self-talk. Keep opinions to yourself. Make the best of every situation. Learn to be in the here and now. Always have goals. Take responsibility for your actions and stand for what you believe. Know that joy is your birthright. Be your own best friend. Use free will wisely. Never lie again. Refuse to think like a victim. Fill your mind with peace. Feed yourself confidence and be willing to succeed. Say, I love you in the mirror. Treat everyone with respect. Pay attention to details and you will get what you expect. You'll meet your higher self.
So Act 1 was from birth and then into the 70s, the 80s, and the early 90s. And Act 2 is going to share a little bit more about her writings. And while I'm thinking about it, the 12 Steps to Loving the Self, these little booklets are on the back table as a complimentary gift from Denise and Anne to you. So be sure to take one if you would like to have one as part of your remembrance of her. Act 2. In the mid-90s, Anne relocated to Los Angeles, California, and literally found herself living smack dab in the middle of Hollywood, just 1 block away from Sunset Boulevard. And having spent years as a portrait photographer, the sheer natural beauty of the never-seen-before landscape called the oceans and the mountains and the trees, Hollywood, Beverly Hills, and LA was pure joy. And for the first time in a while, Anne was not in any formal institution of learning. She was hired on several all-expense-paid gigs with international ballroom dance competition jobs, usually in Hawaii. So they would fly her to Hawaii as a professional videographer with an eye for following any individual dancer throughout their performance. And frequently, a national society requested her photography services for their various conventions throughout the United States. So she was actively working in her dream job. Then, 1999 came and Anne died. She died in the Northridge Hospital emergency room and was revived by amazed doctors who determined she was in extreme critical condition with diabetes and had cause for great concern. She viewed her death as a transition to become fully aware of and to embrace and to love her whole self. She had a new message, and she told us that that experience broke her heart, realizing she had never before really loved herself, nor had she ever told herself that she loved herself. She'd have us stop right now and put our hands on our hearts and say, I love myself. That was Anne. Returning home with a different attitude, she spent most of her recovery time writing self-help poetry about the power of our words, spiritual law, and relationships, and passionately about loving the self. She believed diabetes was more directly related to a lack of joy, self-destructive thoughts, beliefs, and words, rather than the diet or heredity. That belief became the incentive to complete the Help Yourself poems and essays, which offers ideas on empowering the self and the 12 steps to loving the self. So this came out of that experience for her. She has two poems we'll hear. One's called Attitude, because she came out of that experience with a different attitude, and then The Best Relationship. So let's hear from Anne about that.
People say I'm everything because I am attitude. I'll use all of your body to express myself in whatever manner I choose. I am the way you hold your head. I am seen in your eyes. I'll express myself through your voice, which I can easily disguise. I can be seen throughout your body. I'm in the way you move your hands. I become extremely visible when I make your body stand. I know it seems as if I am everything, but I am merely a perception you project. I am your aura, so don't forget, attitude is everything. There's a guardian inside of everyone who will guide, guard, and protect. It will fulfill your every desire when with it you connect. Your first meeting may seem a bit awkward since you share the exact same space. But by standing in front of a mirror, you can meet you face to face. Examine yourself, see your beauty, and ask any question you like. Listen with your heart for the answer and know yourself is always right. Tell you I love you often, and like magic, your life will shift. You will soon realize that you and yourself are in the best relationship.
Plausibly a late-blooming writer, Anne felt she had to catch up and published her first book of poetry in 1999. recorded her first spoken word CD in 2000. Is that this one, Denise, that's here? 2000 and in 2001, she created her motivational Power of Words workshop and published its accompanying workbook. She believed the most logical and successful group would be children, having fewer pre-existing negative ideas about themselves, no biases, and no expectations. So she created the Love Myself song for children and recorded it. She said teens, young adults, women, men, all genders would follow, and believed everyone should be taught as early as possible to love themselves before attempting to love everybody else. And she wrote The Power of the Word, which we have now.
It's not some things, but everything. Everything you say comes back to you, and it's always been that way. Your choice of words, well, that's your choice, but it matters what you say. Positive, negative, right, or wrong. Didn't you know? Haven't you heard? Well, it's in your mouth. Without a doubt, it's in the power of your words. You see, when you bless, curse, or praise whoever is in your view, you create a major consequence, affecting others, but mostly you. It's now time to become aware of what you say and what you think. If you listen to yourself, you will realize that it's your thoughts that make your life stink. Positive, negative, right, or wrong, don't judge. Just observe. And pause before you open your mouth, because there's power in your words.
So most of us here, I'm standing here where Anne spoke these poems to many in the audience today as part of our spiritual community. She'd get up here, and I often have thought, I wonder the first time she got up here and she spoke some of that sassy stuff with that hip beat. If she was thinking, I wonder what they're going to think of, if she was just had what was going through her mind. But we loved it. We loved it. Still just finishing up Act 2, with better managed health, Anne continued writing all kinds of creative stories and poems and eventually wrote stage plays during her early studies with the Los Angeles Theater Center-based playwright group. Wordsmiths, which drew out industry actors to sit in and read in with the students. It was there that she met and collaborated with actor, writer, director Iona Morris, the daughter of TV star Mission Impossible's Greg Morris. Anne's Hollywood actor college instructor, Greg Mortensen, encouraged her to enter a 2007 student playwriting competition, and she won, becoming one of the 5 student finalists to be produced on stage live at the Long Beach City College. Her play, A Little Motivation, left her audience intrigued and challenged. And she also wrote a screenplay, Love Not Included, and sought representation as a screenwriter for her provocative screenplay. Act 3, the final act here. Her love of writing led her into journalism, and she later became a well-crafted journalist for the local college newspaper. She emerged very naturally as a photojournalist whose work was deemed outstanding and instrumental in winning photojournalistic awards at 3 annual statewide conventions for the community's college newspaper, The Viking. While studying journalism, she explored acting, advanced in creative writing, screenwriting, and became ardent with radio and television productions. Anne was granted her dream position as the chairman of communications, I would say the chairwoman of communications for the college's associated student body, ASB Council. She skillfully created and hosted a weekly internet radio talk music show Viking Talk. Within months, she added on a weekly cable television talk show, and lastly, a monthly ASB newsletter to the students from the ASB Council. That's the Associated Student Body Council. Her trifecta of communications was brilliantly coordinated for both city college students and administrators, and proudly flaunted as the first ever vehicle for faculty-student transparency on the college campus. Anne was a 2008 graduate of the journalism program at California's Long Beach City College. And this next poem feels so good. I think about this experience in her life, and then let's hear Feels So Good.
This is the best time of my life. It feels so good to be free. I'm free of regrets and expectations. I've discovered reality. My perceptions plus my opinions create illusions for my day. I have merely to change my thoughts to make my life look a different way. Well, I'm having the best time of my life, no judgments to fall back on. How life is just how I see it, without calling it right or wrong. From the known into the unknown, to possibilities without limitations, I choose to live in the now of my life, without the camouflage of past situations. I got no likes or dislikes. I love everything I see. Right now is the best time of my life. It feels so good to be free. Right now is the best time of my life. It feels so good to be me.
Right? To just be able to say, it feels so good to be me. Right now is the best time of my life. So positive and wonderful. In between writing, photojournaling, and photography, Anne also kept active as a personal life coach who passionately believed words are important and words have power, and we've heard that on a couple of her poems. She brooded over the idea of founding a spiritual center. Then the name Universal Law of Life Center was impressed upon her heart and was the confirmation her spirit had to have. Anne then completed all the necessary coursework that led to her ordination and credentialing through the Universal Life Church Monastery. In 2012, 3 of her aforementioned books were rolled into one paperback ebook, Soul Food, which you've seen pictures of it go by. And some of the writings you're seeing go by are some of her published works and newsletters and journalistic work. Soul Food for the 21st Century, that was the name of, rolled into one book, Soul Food for the 21st Century, a guidebook published by Infinity Publishing. As a byproduct of the book, Anne aired a new internet radio show, Keeping It Positive. She wrote songs, Me Amo, which is the Spanish version of I Love Myself, and It's About Peace, which are currently streaming on all digital platforms. In 2019, Anne was starred as Tilly in Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, and in 2023, Anne was Kate in the play Sylvia, both at Chautauqua Playhouse. One more audio of your word, because she felt that was so vitally important.
It's your word that gives you merit. It's your word that shapes your world. All you will ever have is your word. So how would you describe your word? Can you stand on it when all else fails? Can you take it to the bank? Can others? Can you remember your word? Can you trust your word? Would you say it's worth its weight in gold? Can others say you are true to your word? Can you? How would you describe your word? Because it's your word that gives you merit. It's your word that shapes your world. All you will ever have is your word.
And we want to remember that, don't we? Coming into the last part of Act 3, Anne visited Unity of Auburn right here when Denise came as a guest soloist in 2022. As she visited more, Reverend Cherie, I discovered Anne was a published author, an inspirational performance poet, and an ordained minister. And she too was invited to be a guest soloist at and became Unity of Auburn's resident poet, who was also invited to become a member, and she did, for those of you who are still sitting on the fence. That action opened the door to her entering training to become a Unity Prayer chaplain, which led her to becoming the head of Unity of Auburn's prayer chaplaincy, training new chaplains, and joyfully served in this capacity and other duties she volunteered for until she could no longer do so in the physical body, and made her unexpected transition in her home on Sunday, July 14th, 2024. She had a servant's heart because whatever you asked her to do, she showed up for it, and she put her whole self into it. And most people only knew her as Ann Roberts, not Betty Ann Roberts, not Reverend Ann, not the professional photographer, creative writer, book author, songwriter, award-winning photojournalist, and healer. Everyone thought she was only Denise's older sister and her biggest fan, and I think that's true. Today we've discovered and now celebrate the life of Ann Roberts, our dear sister, aunt, cousin, and friend, and part of our very beloved spiritual family, who lived a very colorful and interesting life and is greatly missed. So that's Act 1, Act 2, Act 3 of a very interesting, marvelous, creative love child, really. And I know that some of you have some stories and things that you could share about her, so I want to open up a few minutes for tributes to Anne. Anything you want to say or share. Dave is going to have the microphone and he can bring it to you. And we have time for a couple of sharings. Also, in your brochure, there's a yellow card that, I don't know why I'm not having everything up here I want. Anyway, there's a yellow card, and it's if you're not a public speaker and you have a particular memory or something really fun to share with the family about Anne, you could write it on the card. And there's a basket at the back of the sanctuary, at the entrance to the sanctuary, where you can leave the yellow cards, and Denise will take them and share them with the family. I get that not everybody can speak. Sometimes it's too emotional, or you're not a public speaker or whatever. But we would like to hear a few stories about Anne. Anybody want to share? Raise your hand and Dave will come in just a minute. He's back there getting the microphone worked up.
Oh, that should be on.
Yeah, there it is.
They help if you turn them on.
We're in the forgiveness business, remember?
That's the first hand I saw.
Thank you, Dave. I met Anne mostly through the chaplain program, but coming here with Unity, and I think the biggest takeaway I have from her is how just fiercely brave she was to open your heart and live with such integrity and so much beauty. She just put it all out there and showed us how to do that. So yeah, love you, Anne.
hardly knew Anne except for many smiles and upliftments she gave me every time I saw her on Sunday. I didn't get to really know her because often I'm involved in other things on Sunday here that keep our church going. But one Sunday when Jerry and I were doing refreshments, Anne insisted on helping us finish up and do the refreshments. I think Jerry was already at church, and I usually finished up and like to put a polish on things and stuff. Well, Anne just insisted that she's going to help me. And we started talking a little bit, and not much, but she helped, and we were almost done. And then something in me, through her talking or just her presence, something in me recognized she was really a spiritual person, and as am I. And I had a feeling, that she had a similar prayer life or practice of the presence as I do. And I asked her, and she shared. And that's it on that, except that Anne passed on just a couple weeks after that. And I am so darn grateful that she insisted on helping me there in the kitchen and shared of herself in what I think of as an I-thou experience, or that kind of thing.
I had the pleasure of meeting Anne here at Unity of Auburn, and her lovely sister Denise and I have sung together. And the thing that impressed me the most about Anne was her giving. Her just everywhere you saw her, she was giving. And I saw her here at church, and she had a little portable CD player, and she had something in her ear. And I said, "What are you doing?" She said, "I'm learning the lines to a play at Chicago Playhouse." And she was, no matter what she was doing, she was always doing something else, always expressing herself in other ways. It was just amazing. And so we went to see the play, and her lines were fantastic. No wonder she had to memorize all these lines, and she was just great. So I didn't know her well, but I loved her and I loved her spirit.
I'll stand up because I'm super short. I met Anne through Denise. When? 2018? Okay, we'll say 17, 18. And Denise and I were doing children's theater through Fairy Tale Town in the Junior League in Sacramento. And Anne came on and helped us with a lot of our photography and media and things like that. She also wanted to participate in our theater as well. So you really get to know someone when you're putting silly costumes on and makeup and you're performing in front of a bunch of 6-year-olds. Yeah. And there wasn't just a few 6-year-olds. Sometimes there was 1,200 6-year-olds. And so we had a very good time. My relationship with Anne wasn't through yours the spiritual way, although I'm sure we appreciated that about each other. But we really liked food and drinks. And so we learned quickly that we both enjoyed champagne, we both enjoyed barbecue, and we talked a lot about how to prepare food well. And we were able to do a few parties where she brought a fantastic brisket, and we just always laughed and had a fantastic time. And so Anne's spirit will always be deep in my heart because she was just such a fun, loving lady. And I feel so blessed that I was able to meet her and interact with her through my friendship with Denise. So yeah, we're all enjoying her memory, and she made a big impression on all of us. Thank you.
There's back there, Jack.
Sorry, I've only been a part of Unity of Auburn for less than a year, and I've known Ann for less than a year. And no offense to Denise and Sharon and Clint, but Ann was my favorite performer. She was the sweetest. She would always, her and Denise too, they would take 5 minutes to say hi to me and Jesse. And she was really sweet. She was very cooperative and just fun. And when I found out about her passing, first thing I did is I called Jesse, and we just talked about Ann for like, what, 10 minutes?
Yeah.
Maybe a half an hour. She was just the best, and getting to know everyone here, Denise and Ann, is probably the best year of my life. You guys, everyone here is the best. Ann and Denise, you guys are amazing. So I'm glad I met you guys. I'm glad I got to know everyone here. Dave and Cherie, thank you for hiring me. So, Jesse.
You only knew how desperate we were for you. No, God provides, right?
In February, April marked my first full year at Unity, and meeting Ann and Denise it made me feel very included at Unity of Auburn, and it also made me feel more welcome to connecting with more of you guys. And I just want to say, acknowledge how much it meant to me to see Ann and Denise at my dad's fundraiser when he passed, and to see others supporting my family. That just meant a lot to me, and it made me feel more of a part of Unity of Auburn.
Thank you.
Well, when Anne came in, I was very impressed. She was such a dignified lady. And I thought, oh my, she's a very quiet, reserved person. But she started reading her poetry, and since I'm a poet too, I bought her book. And when you read another person's poetry, you really go soul to soul.
Mm-hmm.
And that's when I realized that there was so much to Anne. On every level, just layer after layer of intelligence, of love, of wisdom. And she just will be in my heart forever because I learned so much from her.
Hi, I'm Natalie, and I had the chance to serve in the chaplain program with Anne. Kathleen really said what I was going to say, which is the first time I heard her read one of her poems up front, I was just knocked out. I couldn't believe how wonderful it was, and I too bought her book, and it's become pretty much a part of my everyday prayer program. I pull it out frequently and read from it, and so I will continue to benefit from her wisdom long after she's with us in the physical.
Thank you. Maybe time for one more. Anybody just have to share? I'll share. As a minister, behind the scenes, there's a persona, and then there's the behind the scenes persona. This may come as a shock, but Anne is really one of the few people I share the F word with, and that's forgiveness. Forgiveness. So when things go wrong, she could just look across the table at me in fellowship hall, and she knew. She knew I was processing something. So that was good. And then one time I flew home from somewhere, and Denise and Ann picked me up at the airport, but this is the best pickup I've ever had, because they had the back seat with a picnic basket. They had Subway sandwiches and cookies and bottled water, and I was starving. I ate most of it on the way home. I didn't offer them any of it. And we got to my house, but it was wonderful. And then the last thing, I don't know, it must have been New Year's when we have this champagne celebration. And whatever champagne I bought, they loved. And so when I got home from that ride from the airport, I happened to have an extra bottle of that champagne. I said, here, I know you guys like this. And so we were able to share some of those wonderful, wonderful moments. I'm proud of every one of you here today for your love for Anne. I feel so grateful that we got to be her community the last few years of her life. And I'm proud of that and happy about that, and tremendously sad when Denise called me on that Sunday night and said, Reverend Cherie, Anne passed away. It was very hard to process, but you'll know that Michael Lawson as your board president and me as the minister, we went right over and spent almost 3 or 4 hours with Denise to be there and be a presence of love in that time. And I'm grateful that we were able to do that and to be a continuing presence in your life. It was Clint who asked me to come to one of those musical things to hear this singer named Denise. And there were 25 people, I think, that sang, and you were last. And it was a Sunday. And by Sunday at 4 o'clock, I'm like this, you know. And I stayed and I stayed and I waited and I waited. And the music was good. But, you know, finally Denise sang, and I called Clint and I said, you have to get her here. So then that was the connection, and you came and brought Anne with you, and that was so wonderful. Well, I want to begin to close now. There's a poem called Eternal Vision by Sig Paulson, who was a Unity minister in Texas for many years. And let's just open our hearts and let this word, as Anne would say, let this word be in us. They know me not, who think I am only flesh and blood, a transient dweller on the fragile spaceship Earth that gave me human birth. For I am spirit, eternal, indestructible, not confined to space or time. And when my sojourn here is through, my roles fulfilled, my assignments done, I will lay aside this spacesuit called my body and move on to other mansions, roles, and assignments in our Father's house of eternal life. So dry your tears, weep not overmuch for me or for yourself. Set me free in the love that holds us all and makes us one eternally. Our paths will cross again, our minds and hearts will touch, and when we meet again, our souls will shout with joy and laughter as we recall the lives we've lived, the worlds we've seen, the waves we've trod, and we'll celebrate having found ourselves together again as one in God. So let's take a moment now and begin to gently come to a time of closure. We let our hearts lift above and beyond the valley of the shadow of death to the sunrise of a new day and a new life for Anne. Divine Presence, we know you receive our beloved Anne in love. We bless her on her journey forward, and we loose her and let her go to her next expression of life. To Anne's eternal spirit, we say, God bless you. We no longer bind you in our thoughts to this place, this earthly garment, but behold you in your true spirit, full of grace and truth, alive and active, in service to love. We know your faith is a lamp unto your feet and a light to your way. We know that you are secure in God and in life that is eternal. And so we do not say goodbye, but rather farewell, fare thee well, and Godspeed. And I invite those of you who know our prayer for protection to speak it now for Anne. The light of God surrounds you. The love of God enfolds you. The power of God protects you. The presence of God watches over you. Wherever you are, God is, and all is well. Amen. And we'll conclude with hearing Keep On Living by our beloved Anne. And then that will conclude our service, but our ministry has prepared refreshments, beautiful table of refreshments at the back of the sanctuary so you can visit. Don't forget the tribute cards and the books and everything for you. Come up, take a look at the pictures and things. But this is Keep On Living by Ann Roberts.
We'll discover we